Lily's heart pounded so fiercely that she was certain everyone in the room could hear it. Only hours ago, she had been drifting through her day with a vague sense of unease, the kind of prickling at the back of the neck one gets when something precious is quietly slipping out of reach. Then came the frantic messages, the furtive glances from Amanda, and the whispered rumors that someone named Aristotle had been asking after her non-stop. Who was he? What dark motive could compel a stranger to search for her so relentlessly? As she paced the length of the dimly lit hallway, replaying every conversation she had had in the past week, Lily realized that nothing had prepared her for this particular kind of fear, one that emanated from uncertainty rather than outright threat. She sensed that she was the target of someone with purpose, but every logical explanation she could summon only deepened the mystery. Amanda's reluctance to speak only fueled Lily's anxiety. Though they had been friends for years, their bond now felt frayed by secrets too heavy to bear. Lily had confronted Amanda directly. "Tell me who this Aristotle is. What does he want from me?" Yet Amanda's only reply had been a shamefaced shake of her head. Amanda knew more than she was letting on, perhaps she even understood the full scope of Aristotle's identity, but she refused to speak for fear of some unspecified punishment. Lily had grown accustomed to Amanda's protective instincts, but this silence was different. Amanda's eyes, red-rimmed and brimming with sorrow, evoked pity rather than reassurance. Each time Amanda opened her mouth to speak, her lips would curl into a tight line, as though some unseen force held her tongue. Then, in the hush of a late-night confession, when the glow of the desk lamp was the only light in the room, Amanda whispered words that shattered everything Lily thought she knew about her own past. "He's your father, Lily," Amanda had said, voice trembling. "His name is Aristotle Dumas, and he's been watching over you all these years." Lily's mind reeled. Her father? The thought was so implausible, so wildly at odds with the image she had always held of her family, that she fumbled for something, anything, to steady her spiraling thoughts. Could the man who had suddenly surfaced be the loving parent she had never known? Or was this another cruel deception designed to manipulate her? Amanda swore it was true, insisting that Aristotle Dumas harbored no ill will toward Lily, that on the contrary, every step he had taken was driven by the desire to protect her from enemies both known and unseen. Yet how could Lily trust a truth revealed under such cloak-and-dagger circumstances? All at once, memories surfaced in jagged fragments, a single photograph lodged in her mother's belongings, a name whispered during arguments long past, hints of a life Lily's mother had abandoned. If the man searching for her was indeed her father, why had her mother never mentioned him? Why had she never whispered a single affectionate memory of his face or voice? The answers seemed just out of reach, as though encased in ice. And beneath that icy exterior, Lily sensed a deeper lie, something so monstrous it would warp the very foundation of her identity. That fear, more than any physical danger, threatened to unravel her completely. Then there was Cain, Lily's ex-husband, whose name was on everyone's lips whenever whispers of danger arose. Bitter, unpredictable, and all too familiar with the art of manipulation, he seemed a more likely suspect than any benevolent father figure. After all, Cain had the motive, resentment over the life they once shared, grievances festering in the shadows of their broken marriage. Yet Amanda was adamant that Cain lacked the intelligence, the breadth of resources, to orchestrate such an intricate campaign of surveillance and subterfuge. "He's dangerous," Amanda had admitted, "but not like this. Aristotle is different, there's purpose in his every move." Lily wanted to believe Amanda, to let herself imagine a father's love waiting to be rediscovered, but every logical fiber of her being resisted. To accept this revelation meant tearing down every wall she had built around her heart. Now, as Lily stood on the precipice of the unknown, each breath felt borrowed, every heartbeat a countdown to a truth she both yearned for and dreaded. Was this mysterious Aristotle Dumas really the man who had been silently guiding her life, protecting her from harm while keeping his own identity hidden? Or was this final twist yet another layer in a labyrinth of deception crafted to ensnare her? The answer lay somewhere ahead, buried beneath layers of fear, regret, and love long denied. Yet with every passing moment, the question pressed closer, its weight impossible to ignore. Could the stranger who had chased her through shadows and whispers truly be the father she never knew, or was he the architect of her worst nightmare? Lily's chest tightened as she stared at Amanda, the weight of recent revelations pressing on her like a physical force. Ever since whispers began circulating about a mysterious figure named Aristotle Dumas searching for her, Lily had felt the world she knew shift beneath her feet. Now, Amanda, normally reserved, reliable, the one person Lily trusted without question, had confirmed what Lily had only dared to suspect. Aristotle was more than an enigma, more than a passerby intrigued by gossip. He was, in fact, Lily's father. Yet even as Amanda's words echoed in her mind, Lily found herself unable to accept it. If this man truly was her father, why had she never been allowed to meet him? Why had her mother hidden every trace of him before her untimely death? And above all, why did this sudden emergence coincide with an ominous focus on Victor? Questions swirled in Lily's head, each one more urgent than the last, piling upon her like abandoned luggage on a storm-swept dock. Amanda watched Lily's features twist in confusion and hurt. She understood better than anyone else that this was not a game. She had risked everything by revealing Aristotle's existence. The certainty in Amanda's eyes belied the fear that kept her silent for so long. She had known the fallout would be enormous, but she also knew that the truth, no matter how painful, needed to be uncovered. With a deliberate steadiness, Amanda leaned forward, her voice lowered almost to a whisper. "Lily, I know this is overwhelming. I know you feel betrayed, and you have every right to be angry. But please believe me when I say he didn't come back into your life to hurt you. Aristotle has been watching over you, protecting you from threats you never even knew existed." Her words hung in the air, fragile yet insistent, like a candle flickering in a cavern. Slowly, Lily shook her head. If he cared so much, why keep me in the dark? Why wouldn't he reach out directly, face to face? The accusation was raw, a blade aimed at the very heart of Amanda's confession. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes, but she blinked them away. She needed answers, not sympathy. Amanda had no choice but to concede that Aristotle's caution had been extraordinary, bordering on paranoia. He believed that exposing himself too soon would endanger Lily, and perhaps even Victor. That revelation hit Lily like a thunderbolt. Victor, her steadfast ally and mentor through countless trials, had somehow come under Aristotle's scrutiny. The thought of her father deeming Victor a threat was unfathomable, yet Amanda insisted it was true. "He believes Victor's enemies will use you as leverage," Amanda explained. "He's convinced that Victor's business rivals, or worse, political adversaries, will stop at nothing to undermine him, and that you are the easiest way to get to Victor." Lily's mind raced. Political adversaries? Business rivals? She had always seen Victor's world as one of high-stakes corporate warfare, but the idea of enemies so powerful they would threaten her safety was chilling. The rapidity with which these events had unfolded was dizzying. Just days ago, Lily's concerns had centered on the merger between Chancellor Winters and Newman Enterprises, complex negotiations, strategic gambits, alliances sacrificed for leverage. Now those corporate battles seemed petty compared to the hidden war waged in the shadows, where every whispered conversation might be intercepted, every movement tracked. Memories of late-night phone calls she never fully understood, unexplained delays in deliveries to her office, even the inexplicable glitch in the security system at her home. All these incidents now formed a tapestry of covert protection orchestrated by a father she barely knew. Yet despite the danger and deception, Lily felt a sudden spark of exhilaration. There was something intoxicating about unraveling secrets, about piecing together the hidden puzzle of her own life. Guilt flared inside her, guilt for having been oblivious, for taking normalcy for granted, but beneath that guilt lay a deeper excitement fueled by curiosity and the promise of reunion. Amanda hesitated before voicing what she had heard from the whisper network that surrounded Victor. An inner circle of loyalists, old friends, powerful confidants who monitored every rumor that might jeopardize Victor's empire. According to these sources, the long-awaited reunion between Lily and Aristotle was no accident, it had been quietly planned for months. Aristotle had insisted on a controlled environment, one free from eavesdroppers and opportunists. He had declined to meet in public, opting instead for a private estate far from Genoa City's prying eyes. "They say the moment is near," Amanda whispered, "that he's ready to reveal everything, his identity, his motives, and most importantly, the truth about why your mother left him." Lily's breath caught. Her mother's silence had always hurt the most. Every family holiday, every photograph displayed on the mantelpiece had been a reminder of a man whose face she never saw, a man she never met because her mother refused to speak his name. Now that mystery was poised to unravel, and Lily found herself on the brink of either closure or devastation. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She replayed Amanda's revelations like a film stuck on loop. Toi loi, the word Amanda had chosen in Vietnamese to describe the burden of their shared secrets, echoed in Lily's mind. Guilt for Amanda's sacrifice, guilt for her own ignorance, guilt for the role corporate politics had played in keeping her isolated. Yet it was the guilty thrill of uncovering the forbidden, the knowledge that these hidden truths made their story all the more compelling, that stirred a fierce hunger in her soul. Lily realized that sometimes secrets needed time to surface, to be softened by reflection before they could be fully understood. She had demanded answers immediately, but perhaps patience would yield greater clarity. The slow burn of revelation might preserve her heart from shattering altogether when the full scope of her father's life, and her mother's choices, finally came to light. As dawn approached, Lily made her decision. She would attend the meeting, but on her own terms. She would demand transparency, insist on honesty, and refuse any half-truths. More than that, she would prepare herself for confrontation, for the whirlwind of emotions bound to erupt when she looked into Aristotle's eyes for the first time. She would ask the hardest questions. Why had he allowed Victor to become collateral damage? Why had he remained silent about his feelings for her mother? And above all, why now, after all these years, choose this moment to emerge from the shadows? The reunion promised to be the climax of a drama that had been years in the making, a collision of past regrets and future hopes with stakes higher than any corporate takeover. In the quiet of her apartment, Lily allowed herself a final moment of vulnerability. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but a resolute calm followed. Guilt gave way to determination. Fear yielded to anticipation. Outside, the city began to stir, oblivious to the seismic shift about to occur behind closed doors. For Lily, however, the world had changed forever. The long-forgotten name Aristotle Dumas would soon carry the weight of a father's legacy, and the terrifying promise of a daughter's redemption. In that fragile space between darkness and dawn, Lily stood ready to claim her birthright, the right to know the truth, to reconcile the fragments of her past, and to forge an unbreakable bond with the man who had protected her from harm, even when she did not know she needed it most. As the first light of day filtered through her curtains, Lily exhaled, steeled herself, and stepped into the unknown. Claire stood just beyond the marble foyer of the GCAC, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor as she recounted to Kyle the startling turn of events that morning. Nikki, imperious as ever, had cornered one of her most insufferable junior executives in the boardroom and, in full view of stunned colleagues, delivered a scathing rebuke so forceful that even the stiffest upper lips wavered. The story unfolded in Claire's measured voice, each detail laced with shock and reluctant admiration. How Nikki had listened in silence to the man's arrogant boasts about his untouchable status, then, with a calm that belied volcanic fury, dismantled his arguments one by one, exposed the holes in his sales figures, and reminded him, in no uncertain terms, that loyalty and humility were the true currencies at play in their world. As Claire spoke, Kyle watched with a mixture of awe and curiosity, picturing a titaness of industry reigning unchallenged over her corporate kingdom. Yet Kyle's mind was only half on the tale. He shifted his weight, glancing down the gallery that led to the plush lounge beyond. His phone buzzed quietly in his pocket, the screen lighting up with a single word, Audra. He gave Claire a reassuring nod, tucking the device away. "That's incredible about Nikki," he said, his voice steady, "but I need to check in with Audra in the lounge. She reached out earlier, says she has a proposal just for me." Claire's brow furrowed in concern. The weight of hidden alliances and new revelations hung between them like a gathering storm. She knew better than to press him, but her heart fluttered. Audra's proposals often carried risk. And yet, if Kyle believed he could handle it, she would trust his judgment. She hesitated, lips parted to ask whether she should accompany him, but Kyle shook his head gently. "I think she'll be more candid one-on-one," he said, offering a small smile. "I promise I'll be back before you even miss me." And with that, he slipped past the towering marble pillars into the low-lit opulence of the lounge, where velvet draperies draped every window and a grand piano waited in the corner like a silent confidant. Claire watched his retreating figure until it was swallowed by the muted glow of table lamps, then exhaled, her shoulders easing from tension she had scarcely realized she was holding. Inside the lounge, the world contracted to a smaller, more intimate scale. Candlelight danced on crystal glasses, and the hum of soft jazz drifted through the air, weaving around the plush armchairs and low-slung sofas. At a corner table, bathed in a pool of solitary illumination, Audra sat alone. A tumbler of amber liquor rested in her hand, the ice clinking softly as she lifted it to her lips. Her gaze was fixed somewhere far beyond the immediate surroundings, perhaps lost in thought, perhaps waiting. The sheen of strain around her eyes was subtle but unmistakable. A single strand of auburn hair had fallen across her cheek, and her tailored jacket bore the faintest crease, as though she had arrived under duress. Holden, drawn by curiosity or loyalty, perhaps both, approached with measured steps, careful not to interrupt the fragile harmony of the moment. He cleared his throat softly, and Audra glanced up, her lips curving into a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Need some company?" he asked, sliding onto the seat opposite her. His voice was gentle, genuine, but Audra's response was immediate and cutting. "I don't need anyone's company, least of all yours," she replied, her tone edged with chill. The words hung between them like shattered glass. Holden pressed on, undeterred. "You look like you could use a friend," he said quietly, nodding toward the nearly empty seat beside her. "It's been a long week. You don't have to face it alone." Audra's jaw tightened. She let her gaze drift back to her glass, swirling the liquid within as though seeking solace in its depths. "I don't face anything with you," she whispered, turning away. Her shoulders lifted in a quick shrug, part resignation, part defiance, before she set her resolve like steel. "You wouldn't understand the stakes here, Holden. This isn't some dinner invitation. This is something far more complicated." Holden leaned forward, concern knitting his brow. "Then help me understand," he implored. "Audra, whatever you're up against, you don't have to carry it by yourself." A frail silence followed. In that hush, the soft melody from the piano seemed to swell, filling the space with notes that spoke of sorrow and longing. Audra took a slow breath, the amber liquid catching the light as she lifted her glass for another sip. For a moment, Holden thought she would relent, that she'd reveal the hidden burden she bore. But instead, she set the glass down with deliberate care and turned her gaze back to him, eyes sharp as obsidian. "There's a history between us," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "one you weren't part of. You think you know me, but you have no idea what I've lost, what I've sacrificed, to get here." Her words trembled with emotion, though her face remained composed. "Kyle doesn't know it yet, but this proposal isn't just business. It's personal." Holden's pulse quickened. He knew Audra well enough to sense that personal in her vocabulary signified wounds that ran deep, scars that could sting anew if touched. Miles away, in the gilded quiet of the GCAC foyer, Claire waited, with one ear attuned to the echo of heels on marble, with one eye skimming the names engraved on the donor plaque, with her heart beating a silent drum of concern. She replayed Audra's name in her mind, the syllables heavy with unspoken history. Who was this woman, so fiercely independent, yet haunted by ghosts no one else saw? Why had she singled out Kyle for this clandestine meeting? And what did it mean that she kept him at arm's length, that she preferred shadows over shared confidences? Back in the lounge, Holden reached out, placing a tentative hand atop Audra's folded fingers. The movement was gentle, reverent, as though he feared he might break the fragile barrier she had erected around herself. Audra's hand stilled, and she allowed his touch to linger for a heartbeat before retracting it, not unkindly, but with a quiet firmness. "Thank you for caring," she said, voice so soft it was nearly lost beneath the jazz riff. "But this is something I have to face on my own." And with that, she stood, smoothing the front of her jacket as though straightening an invisible armor. "I should go find Kyle," she added, nodding once toward the lounge entrance. "He needs to know what he's getting into." Holden watched as she disappeared into the half-light, every step measured, every movement a testament to her resolve. He sighed, a low, pained sound, and remained where he was, cradling the empty seat and the empty space of all she had left unsaid. Outside, the CAC's ornate doors swung closed behind Audra, sealing off one tableau while another unfolded.